I never meant for the room to feel this quiet. But there we were, her and I, caught in a silence that didn't belong to strangers, and yet wasn't safe enough for anything more. She was leaning against the edge of the counter, a coffee cup in her hand, though she hadn't sipped from it in minutes. My friend's mom, mid-40s, poised, the kind of presence that filled a room even when she said nothing at all. There was a trace of tiredness at the corners of her eyes, but it only made her look more real, less untouchable. I was 20, hardly practiced at disguising my thoughts. And in that still moment, I knew she could see more in me than I wanted revealed. Her gaze lingered longer than it should have. Not piercing, but steady. I shifted my weight, glanced at the floor, then back up, but she hadn't looked away. It wasn't the stare of someone judging. It was the stare of someone noticing. "Coffee?" she asked finally, her voice smooth, carrying a softness that felt too deliberate. I nodded, though I already had a cup. My hand brushed hers when she passed it over. Unnecessary contact, too brief to be an accident. Warm. I should have said something. About school, about the weather, anything, but the words snagged in my throat. She seemed amused by that, the corner of her mouth twitching like she wanted to smile, but thought better of it. "You're quiet," she said, not accusing, just observing. "Ah, yeah. Sorry." My voice cracked slightly, betraying me. "Don't apologize," she murmured, tilting her head. Quiet isn't a bad thing. The way she said it, low, almost distracted, made the air heavier. She set her cup down, but didn't step away. Instead, she folded her arms loosely, resting against the counter, her posture open yet guarded. I watched the light shift across her hair, a strand falling forward as she tilted her head. I caught myself staring too long, then looked away. But I felt it, the slight change in her breathing when she realized. The silence stretched, not empty, but charged. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space between us. My hand tightened around my cup, fingers restless against the warm ceramic. She finally broke it. "You look at people differently. Did you know that?" The question landed harder than it should have. I met her eyes again, uncertain, but she didn't flinch. "What do you mean?" I asked. Her lips curved into a restrained smile. "Like you're not just looking. Like you're listening, even when they haven't said anything." I felt heat rise to my neck. No one had ever said that to me before. Not like that. She let the words hang. Her fingers tapped once against the counter, then stilled. I could see the faintest tremor in her hand, though she hid it well. Vulnerability flickered there, quick, almost secret. I wanted to answer, to say something that would ease whatever she was feeling, but the right words didn't come. So I stayed quiet, which only seemed to pull her deeper into that unspoken current between us. Her eyes softened, but before either of us could move closer, the sound of the front door opening echoed through the hallway. We froze. She straightened, brushing a hand across her hair, while I shifted back, as if distance could undo what had just happened. But her eyes caught mine once more. Quick, fleeting, impossible to ignore. A look that said, "You know exactly what you're doing to me." And then the moment was gone. The house felt different after that moment in the kitchen, like something invisible had shifted. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just a look, a slip of silence stretched too long. But the way my chest tightened every time I caught her glance told me otherwise. Later that afternoon, we ended up in the living room, just the two of us again. The blinds were half open, letting in thin streaks of sunlight that cut across the carpet. She was seated at the edge of the sofa, thumbing through a book she didn't seem to be reading. I sat across from her, pretending to check my phone, but my eyes kept drifting back. She broke the quiet first. "It's strange, isn't it? How full a house can feel, and still feel empty." Her voice was softer this time, more like she was talking to herself. I frowned. "You mean since the divorce?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "It's been a year. You'd think I'd be used to the quiet by now." Her thumb traced the edge of the book absent-mindedly. "But some nights, it doesn't let you sleep." There was a weight in her words that made me sit forward, elbows on my knees. She wasn't usually this open. I've never really been in anything serious," I admitted, my voice careful. "So I don't know what that kind of quiet feels like. But I can imagine." She looked at me then, really looked, eyes narrowing slightly, like she was trying to measure how much of me was still boy and how much had already become man. The air between us felt unsteady. She closed the book, placed it on the coffee table, and leaned back, one arm draped casually over the sofa. Too casual, as if she was trying to play off the closeness of her words. I noticed then a strand of hair falling against her cheek. Before I could think better of it, I leaned forward. "You've got." I motioned vaguely, my hand brushing the air near her face. Her lips parted, just slightly, but she didn't move. So I reached out, hesitating just long enough for her to stop me if she wanted. She didn't. My fingers tucked the strand gently behind her ear. Her skin was warm. Too warm. My hand lingered a second longer than it should have, and in that second, I caught the hitch of her breath. She pulled back, just slightly, but not out of rejection, more like she was startled by herself. "You shouldn't," she began, then stopped. Her words trailed off, but her eyes betrayed her. They lingered on me the way someone lingers at the edge of a decision they know they shouldn't make. I cleared my throat, trying to defuse the moment, but my chest was tight. I could still feel the trace of her skin against my fingertips. And then, as if to make it worse, footsteps echoed upstairs, her son moving about in his room. The reminder of where we were, of who we were, cut sharp through the haze. She straightened quickly, brushing at the cushion beside her. "You should sit here. It's more comfortable," she said, her tone too bright, too rehearsed. But when I sat beside her, closer than I should have, she didn't move away. She let her arm remain stretched along the back of the sofa, inches from my shoulder, her breath faint against my skin. We didn't touch. Not really. But the space between us was alive with everything neither of us dared to say. And in that silence, we both knew we were already too close. The evening stretched longer than it should have, shadows growing in the corners of the room as the sun slipped away. I should have gone home hours ago, but neither of us had said it out loud. Instead, we lingered in that living room, orbiting around a silence that felt heavier by the minute. She rose to bring in the plates from dinner, and I followed without thinking. In the kitchen, the air seemed smaller, like the walls had pressed closer. She reached up to a high shelf for a glass, her shirt lifting just slightly, exposing the curve of her waist. My chest tightened. "Could you?" she began, struggling to reach. Before she finished, I stepped closer, close enough to feel the faint warmth of her skin, close enough that my shoulder brushed hers as I reached above her. My hand took the glass easily, but neither of us moved away. She looked up, startled by how near I was. The space between our faces was a breath, no more. "Thank you," she whispered, but her voice carried more weight than gratitude. My hand hesitated, glass still in it, as if I'd forgotten what I was supposed to do. The moment hung there, too long, too dangerous, until the sharp buzz of her phone on the counter shattered it. She flinched, stepping back, her hand brushing mine as she reached for the device. The name glowing on the screen, her ex-husband. She declined the call too quickly. Her hand trembled faintly as she set the phone down. I didn't move. My pulse was still hammering from the nearness, from the way her breath had brushed against my cheek. Her eyes flicked to mine again, conflicted, restless. "We can't, this is," she stopped, biting her lip. "I know," I said quietly, but I didn't step back. Silence stretched between us again, more fragile than before. Every second felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Upstairs, the creak of floorboards reminded us of the house's other presence. My friend, her son, just a few feet above. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, trying to mask the tremor in her hands. "If anyone knew, they don't." I cut in, too quickly. My voice sounded more certain than I felt. Her eyes softened, but only for a second. "You're too young to carry this weight." "I don't care." The words came before I could stop them. They sounded raw, truer than I'd ever admitted out loud. Her breath caught, and she looked away, but the tension only drew me closer. I could smell her perfume, something faint, floral, wrapped in the warmth of her skin. For a moment, I thought she might close the distance. My hand brushed against hers again, fingers grazing just enough to make us both still. Her lips parted, barely, like she was about to speak, or something more. But the floor above creaked again. A door opened. Laughter from her son's voice drifted faintly down the stairs. We both froze, breath locked, eyes wide. The spell broke, but only just. She stepped back, forcing a small, careful smile that didn't match her eyes. "We should sit down, before someone wonders." I nodded, but when we returned to the sofa, we sat closer than we had any right to. Our shoulders nearly touched. Our silence said everything. And in that silence, longing burned hotter than anything words could allow. The night had settled heavy around the house, the kind of silence that magnifies every sound. Upstairs, his door had closed. The muffled rhythm of music leaked faintly from behind it, but down here, in the dim glow of a single lamp, it was just us. She sat at the end of the sofa, legs tucked beneath her, her glass of wine untouched on the table. I was on the other side, but the distance between us felt unbearable. Every glance, every brush of air seemed to pull us closer. At some point, she sighed, pressing her palm to her forehead. This has to stop. Her words cut, but her voice was unsteady, softer than the conviction she wanted to show. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Then why don't you move away? Her eyes flicked up sharply. For a long beat, she didn't answer. Then, with a shaky exhale, she said, because you're making it impossible. The honesty in her voice sent a rush through me. She hadn't meant to say it. I could tell by the way she bit her lip, regret already spilling into her eyes. Before I could think, I was closer. Not touching her, but near enough that her breath brushed against my cheek. You don't know what you're doing, she whispered, though her hand lifted as if to stop me, and then faltered, hovering just shy of my arm. Then tell me, I said, my voice low, steadier than I felt. Tell me what this is. Her throat tightened, eyes flicking to my mouth before darting away. Her fingers trembled, brushing against the back of my hand as though by accident, though we both knew it wasn't. She stopped, shook her head. You're younger. You're my son's friend. If anyone knew, but they don't. My words cut sharper than intended, a raw edge of desperation in them. She closed her eyes, shoulders tight, as if holding herself together. You don't understand. I wake up, and it's your face I see in my head. I hear your laugh in an empty house, and I can't. Her voice broke, shame curling through the confession. I didn't give her a chance to finish. My hand lifted, brushing gently against her cheek, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her eyes snapped open at the touch, wide and startled, but she didn't pull away. The room felt too small, the silence too loud. Her body leaned, barely, almost imperceptibly, into my hand. The weight of her warmth against my palm was unbearable. I shouldn't, she whispered. But you are, I murmured, my forehead nearly brushing hers. Her lips parted, and for one suspended heartbeat, the space between us vanished. Breath mingled, eyes locked, every part of me screaming to close the last inch. And then, her phone buzzed sharply on the table. The sudden vibration jolted us apart like a shot. She turned away quickly, pressing the back of her hand against her mouth, hiding everything she couldn't let me see. But the damage was done. She had confessed. I had heard it, and nothing in the world could undo that. The next evening, I almost didn't come back. After what had happened, the almost confession, the almost kiss, I told myself I'd give her space. But my phone buzzed with a message from her son, movie night. Come by at 7. I went. The three of us sat together on the sofa, the movie flickering across the screen. He lounged comfortably, cracking jokes, laughing loud. She and I, though, we hardly moved. I felt her presence inches away, her body heat bleeding through the cushion, every shift of her breathing magnified. Halfway through, her son dozed off, head tilted back, light snoring breaking the silence. She reached for the remote to lower the volume, and as she leaned forward, her hand brushed my knee. Too long, too intentional. My chest tightened, but I didn't move. Then her son stirred, eyes still closed, muttering in his sleep. One word slipped out, groggy, half-formed. Mom, stop. The air froze. She went pale, hand jerking back as though burned. My stomach dropped. Had he heard something? Did he know? We sat in rigid silence until his breathing steadied again. But the spell was broken. She stood abruptly, gathering empty glasses with trembling hands. I followed her into the kitchen. He didn't mean it, I whispered. She set the glasses down hard, water sloshing. Or maybe he did, she snapped, her voice raw, stripped of control. I had never heard her like that. Angry. Not at him, at herself. I can't do this, she said, pressing both palms against the counter. Do you understand? He trusts you. I am supposed to know better. And yet, her voice cracked, and she turned her face away, ashamed of the tears threatening her eyes. I moved closer, instinct overriding sense. My hand hovered near her shoulder, then rested gently. You think I don't feel the same guilt? I whispered. Every time I walk in this house, I feel it. But I can't stay away. And neither can you. Her body stiffened under my touch, then softened, too quickly, betraying her need. She spun around suddenly, her face inches from mine, breath sharp, eyes flashing with something between fury and longing. You think this is simple? She hissed. You think I can just want you, without destroying everything? Her words cut, but the way her hand gripped my wrist betrayed her. She wasn't letting me go. I don't care if it destroys me, I said, too fast, too reckless. Her lips parted at that, as though I'd said something she'd been aching to hear and terrified to admit. For a moment, I thought she might give in, close the gap between us. Instead, she stepped back, her body trembling, fists clenched at her sides. If you keep coming here, it won't just be about us anymore. It'll hurt him. Do you get that? It'll hurt him. Her words landed heavy. Guilt spread like fire through my chest, burning hotter than desire. But as she brushed past me, close enough for her shoulder to graze mine, her whisper betrayed her resolve. Don't stop coming. I stayed away for 3 days. 3 nights of replaying her whisper. Don't stop coming. Until it was carved into me. I told myself distance was safer, but the absence only deepened the ache. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. And when I finally saw her again, it was by accident. I was passing by her house when I saw her through the window. Alone, sitting at the kitchen table, her face buried in her hands, a glass of wine untouched beside her. She looked older in that moment, not because of her years, but because of her loneliness. I almost kept walking. Almost. But my feet carried me up the steps before I could stop them. When she opened the door, surprise flickered across her face, quickly replaced by something she couldn't hide. Relief. You shouldn't be here, she said softly. Neither should you. I replied, though the words made no sense. She let me in anyway. The house was quiet, too quiet. Her son wasn't home. The realization struck us both at the same time, and it changed everything. She turned, leaning against the counter, arms folded tightly as though bracing herself. Why do you keep coming back? I stepped closer. Because every time I try to stay away, I feel like I'm already losing something I can't stand to lose. Her breath caught. She shook her head, but her eyes didn't leave mine. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me. I whispered, moving close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin. Her hands pressed against my chest, not pushing me away, just holding me there. Her fingers curled lightly into my shirt. She trembled. I can't, she breathed, her forehead dipping until it almost touched mine. I can't let myself want this. But I do. God help me, I do. Her confession filled the space between us, thick and impossible to ignore. My hand lifted, brushing gently across her jaw, thumb grazing the curve of her cheek. She closed her eyes, leaning into the touch, her body betraying every word of restraint. I shouldn't, she whispered again, but her voice was breaking. Then don't say it. I murmured, my lips hovering just above hers. The silence that followed was deafening. Our breaths tangled, hearts pounding, the distance between us shrinking to nothing. For one suspended moment, the world outside ceased to exist. And then, she kissed me. It wasn't graceful, wasn't careful. It was messy, raw, desperate. Years of loneliness colliding with everything unspoken between us. Her hands fisted in my shirt, pulling me closer, while mine held her like I'd never let go. When she finally pulled back, her forehead rested against mine, breath ragged, eyes glassy. We can't go back now, she whispered. I don't want to, I said, steady, certain. And for the first time, there was no more hiding. No more pretending. We both knew exactly what we were to each other, flawed, risky, impossible, and undeniable. The house was quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. Not sharp, not dangerous, just heavy with the truth we couldn't take back. She sat beside me on the sofa, her knees drawn close, her hands folded in her lap. I could still taste her kiss, raw and desperate, like a secret set free. But now her shoulders trembled faintly, her eyes fixed on the floor. I ruined everything, she whispered. I turned toward her, my voice steady. No, you didn't. Her laugh was soft, broken. I'm your friend's mom. I should have stopped this before it began. Her hands tightened, knuckles pale. What kind of person does that make me? The kind who's human, I said gently. My hand reached for hers. hesitant, but certain when our fingers finally touched. She flinched at first, then stilled. Slowly, her hand curled into mine. Her eyes lifted, finally meeting mine. They were filled with fear, but also something softer. Something she'd been holding back for too long. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "I don't know how to let myself want something that feels so impossible." I leaned closer, not pressing, just letting her feel the warmth of me near her. "Then don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about what anyone else would say. Just think about now." For a long moment, neither of us moved. The weight of her doubts pressed against the pull of what we both knew we wanted. And then, slowly, carefully, she shifted closer until her head rested against my shoulder. The room softened around us. Her breathing steadied, her body relaxing against mine as though she'd been holding herself upright for years and finally let go. "I thought I was too old to feel this way again," she whispered. I smiled faintly, my thumb brushing across the back of her hand. "And I thought I was too young to matter this much to someone like you." Her laugh came then, quiet and warm, the kind that loosened something in my chest. I turned, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. She closed her eyes, leaning into it, her fingers threading fully into mine at last. The kind of touch that didn't ask for permission, because it already belonged. We stayed like that, two people who had fought against themselves and lost, but in losing, found something neither of us had expected. Not perfect, not easy, but real. She lifted her head, her eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. "Whatever happens after this," she trailed off, her voice trembling. I brushed her cheek with my hand, steady. "After this, we figure it out. Together." Her lips curved into a small, fragile smile. And for the first time, there was no running, no denial. Just us. Close. Certain. Undeniable. Speech Balloon, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?